Excellent. So, hey, we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. Today, we are going to talk a little bit about accelerating and supercharging your financial business processes using Alteryx. So using an Alteryx and really accelerating the insights that you get from the financials that are running through your organization. So as we get started, I'm just going to quickly jump to the next screen just to quickly provide you with an overview of what we're going to be going over today. I'll just introduce our presenters today. We'll do a quick overview of Alteryx platform for finance because there are some people on this call who are not familiar with Alteryx and how it fits into the financial landscape. But today we will be going through an end-to-end intro of how Alteryx works through, and we'll be doing a demo of how you can supercharge your financial processes using SAP connectors from Theobald Software. So Theobald Software will be doing a quick overview of who they are, how they fit in, what they've been doing with certified connectors, and then we'll go into an end-to-end demonstration. The most of this is going to be all demonstration, but I'll do a quick introduction of Alteryx for finance, and then we'll do the demonstration a little bit later and then Q&A. So I just want to, again, thank you everybody for joining us. And the people who will be presenting today, I'm Jonathan Teal. I am a strategic account executive here at Alteryx. I worked at SAP for nearly 6 years, so I'm extremely familiar with the ecosystem around ERPs and the valuable data that's inside these systems. So I'll talk a little bit about my knowledge around what's in that space. I've got Nick Smith here, who's going to help me as a solutions engineer. He's going to help us with the demo. Tyler Reynolds, who's a director from Theobald, and Christoph, who are both from Theobald, who will be talking about not only their company, their experience working with SAP, but also the value that some of their clients have gotten by connecting the end-to-end stream from SAP all the way through to visualization at the end, and that's what we're all going to be talking about today. So let's just get started and just frame up for those people who are not so familiar. One of the biggest challenges that we know that's happening in today's space is that every finance team is being asked to do more with less. Today, with pressures that are happening around inflation, the cost of doing business is increasing. More and more CFOs are focused on containing costs, potentially even reducing headcount and doing more with less. That is a running theme. And according to Gartner magazine, 73% of all CFOs view inflation as the top concern. And indeed, actually, CFOs spend a huge chunk of their time and their activities managing financial risk, really about 38%, according to McKinsey. And so when you look at it, when you look at that concern around risk and doing more with less, the problem is that every organization is dealing with a higher volume of data that's coming in from various different sources. It's not just the ERP data, it's the people data, it's the sales data, it's the systems data that are informing what customers are doing and what they need to do. And so at the end of the day, managing risk and doing more with less is part of the challenge. But anticipating what's going to come next is the next biggest problem. That's 95% of all finance leaders report that predicting disruption or changes in the business needs to be a higher focus because they need to know what's happening around the corner. And so when you look at organizations in finance, they're trying to really manage the business, drive profitability, increase and improve margins, and it can be a challenge in today's environment. So when we look at analytics and empowering financial or the finance teams across the organization. Each focused area within the finance organization, whether you're doing a reconciliation, which is a common thing that's being done on an ad hoc basis within finance, or we're talking about budgeting in FP&A, or audit and risk, or preparing the taxes at the end of the day. This volume of data and the need to get access to the data becomes even more prescient. So speed is key. And I know from working at SAP that SAP systems or ERP systems are typically closed systems. And so what that means is that you have to go to IT to get extracts built so that you can pull the data that you need, or you need to pull the data from SAP, download it into to a CSV, and then begin manipulating the data in spreadsheets. And the common theme that we see is that the financial approaches within finance are still very, very much spreadsheet based. And so those organizations who are not using Alteryx today are typically doing these manual processes very manually, and they're not able to collaborate when they're dealing with flat files. And it makes it even more difficult once you're unable to collaborate to really do some of those predictive things that everybody's looking to do. So what everybody is looking for is more AI-driven or AI-driven financial analytics processes, automating the analytics process, enabling self-service so that those financial data workers can actually work with the data that they need, and ultimately empowering them with predictive analytics tools that enable them to do what they need to do. Alteryx is the platform that helps companies supercharge their financial processes so that they can see what's going on in the business faster. Whether you're talking about tax automation, preparing the budgets for FP&A, auditing the books that have been prepared, or even doing automated consolidations. Alteryx is the platform that many of the largest organizations who are reporting to the financial markets, they're the ones that are using Alteryx to help them accelerate those processes. So when we look at some of the results that have been achieved by many of our customers, we get faster close rates, improved savings and consolidation of costs. We see more accuracy around your data, and also we see more of our customers moving their financial data workers out of day-to-day transactional work and more into higher value work within the financial organization, and ultimately driving intercompany savings at a higher rate. How do we do this? For those who are not familiar on this call, we do this by connecting the sources across the organization, whether it be Workday data, Salesforce data, or ERP data, and bringing that data into a single, easy-to-use landscape that allows you to prep, blend, augment, and run data analytics, or with even geospatial capabilities to allow you to report what's going on in the business in the tools that you want to be able to use, with whether it's Tableau, whether it's Auto Insights, or Power BI, or any of the other visualization tools that you need. Alteryx is that central hub that allows you to do that. But today's focus is not on what is Alteryx. It is on how do we take that SAP data or that ERP data and supercharge it? How do we connect your existing financial experience in SAP into the workflows that you're building and orchestrate those so that you can get faster business insights on the fly? And so today we have brought a partner with us, Theobald Software, who has been in the industry for over 18 years working with SAP, building connectors, and work very closely with Alteryx. And so what I'd like to do now is hand over the reins to Tyler Reynolds so that he can actually drive the presentation from here. Tyler, are you on?
Okay, yes. Hello, Jonathan.
Okay,
Thank you for that intro.
You bet.
Great. So yes, hello, everyone. Like Jonathan said, my name is Tyler Reynolds. I am Director of Sales here at Theobald. And like Jonathan just pointed out, we have been in the SAP integration business field for almost 20 years. Why we need to do that, again, like Jonathan mentioned, is that SAP data is very critical for companies to use in their analytics reporting. However, it's very hard to bring that data outside of the SAP landscapes into environments where organizations would like to utilize or consume that data in their processes. And so in the past close to 20 years, what we deliver are solutions that help to extract data from SAP sources and basically utilize that data into a target environment where you want to work or consume that data. In many cases, that's for the purpose of BI and analytics. We have many customers over the years. You can see on the screen over 3,000 customers. And really what we do is SAP data extraction. At Theobald, we don't do much on the data transformation or analytics, which is why about 6 or 7 years ago, we had partnered with Alteryx as technology partners because it's a great solution where Alteryx has these amazing prep blend analytics capabilities, and where we can help the Alteryx users in their workflows is basically enabling full self-service access for any workflows that include or need to include data from SAP. And so we've been partnering for a few years now with Alteryx, and over those years, we've really refined our partnership, refined our tools into to what we will show you later on in this demo. One thing that is very important to point out, very important to our customers, mainly when you think about maybe your own internal IT organizations or working with SAP teams, is that there needs to be a level of security. The IT teams, SAP basis teams want to know how, if you're connecting to the SAP system, how are you doing that? Who's doing that? Because it's very controlled, and the SAP themselves have their own restrictions on the rights you have to pull that data. So the way we go about it, it's a certified method by SAP. You can see on the screen here that we've been certified for third-party connectors. And the way we go about that is connecting through what's known in SAP as the application layer, which means you're not connecting directly to a database. However, you're basically connecting the same way you would as an SAP user. So if you can think about, the way you might log on to SAP GUI to maybe, to look up some information, run some transactions, look up customer data, our tool is going to connect in the same method. And in fact, not only is it in the same method, but you're still making that connection with that same SAP user that you already have. And so that helps with not needing to create any additional, SAP licensing or anything else on the SAP side.
So essentially, to summarize, essentially, if you're in SAP and I'm an administrator and I give somebody in the finance team rights to a certain set of data sets, all of those rights are controlled within SAP. You don't need anything within the connector control it. It's whatever your rights are as a user, tells you what you have access to through the connector.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly that. So every SAP user account has their own rights and privileges, and that same SAP user account with the tool that we'll show you in just a few moments carries over. So basically, what that would mean is, if I have my SAP user for Tyler Reynolds, and I have access to certain items in the SAP system, I'll be able to get to those within the Alteryx workflow via the connector.
Right.
And at the same time, it helps with the security portion when, okay, you don't want necessarily every SAP user having access to, all types of data. So if I'm on finance, maybe I'm not privy to data in HR or other areas. And so if I'm not privy to that information with my SAP user account, you'll likewise not be able to access that in your data flows, which again, companies and IT teams will really look at that and want that, because the number one priority is always security and data governance. So that's an overview of kind of what we do, how we approach it, and then the next piece is what types of SAP systems are you able to connect to through Alteryx with our connector. So technically speaking, we can connect to any of the SAP systems that are on the native SAP platform. This includes the ERP systems such as ECC, or if you're on S/4HANA. We can also connect to the BW systems if you happen to access some of those BW objects, again, for the more legacy BW systems, or if you're on the BW for HANA environment. And what that means, being able to connect to those systems, is that there are many different modules or industry solutions, underlying solutions that are built on those same platforms. And so we're able to get to those systems as well. And so you can see on this slide just a sample of some of the more common systems that we connect to that our customers need to connect to in their data flows, in their analytics.
Thanks.
And so really what we're trying to solve, again, with combining with the power of Alteryx, is really providing the Alteryx user a full self-service experience where they can connect to SAP in their workflows and their analytics. One example of what that might mean is this customer story we have on the screen here at Morton Salt. So without a connector, like the connector we provide, a lot of times what companies will rely on is an IT resource or some resource to manually do these data pulls from SAP, which can be time-consuming and expensive process. And a lot of times the business user, the analyst, will have a request. And then the IT person will be responsible for getting that data out. Again, that's possible. However, it's time-consuming. It's manual effort, and it's not always done in that results in a format that's easy for the user to consume. So even if the data is available, then you kind of have to massage that and make that prepped for the data flow.
And it can be a lot of back and forth between IT. So with IT, you initially say, oh, well, I need these fields with these T codes, et cetera, from from SAP and you get it into the format and you're like, you suddenly realize you need more fields than what that are needed in order for you to do your analytics. And so you're going back and forth with IT and it can take time. And not only that, you have to get on, you have to get into their pipeline
Mm-hmm.
of work. So that can be the part of the challenge is like getting a resource who can pull the data, get it in a timely manner, and deliver it to you so that you can get your work done. And that can be part of the challenge is that back and forth. And so I think that this use case kind of articulates, by connecting the data and enabling the user with their data rights, you're able to streamline that process, allow you to work within SAP from the tool that you're going to show us, and essentially connect in, get what you need, and then build your workflow the way you need to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Another thing to point out as well is when you're relying on a source to make that data available, when you're running your analytics, it's only going to be as current as the last time that data was pulled. In the
Yep.
case of Morton, it was done once a day on weekdays only, and so you know the data is only as fresh as when it was last pulled. With Alteryx and the connectors we provide, the end user was then able to have not only access to the data, but have access to the data in real time, meaning whenever they run their workflow, it's a live snapshot of their SAP system. And then in this case at Morton Salt, they also combine that capability with the Alteryx server in order to automate these extractions. And so, think about it from the end, the business user's point of view, where at first they were waiting daily for these reports to come available. Then they would go ahead and then run those workflows, to now being able to run them anytime they need with data that live, real time, and they can even schedule these workflows. And so then there's no manual work in that process. Yeah, and so that's an overview. Hopefully you get a sense of how we are approaching the SAP connectivity and how we are really partnering with Alteryx to help drive a good user experience. And so at this point, I will introduce Christoph Schuler from Theobald, who will kind of get into how that looks and how that actually works.
Perfect.
Great. Thanks, Tyler, and hello, everyone. I'm happy to walk you through our tools briefly. So I'm going to share my screen. And you see the Alteryx Designer here. What I would actually like to do is start in SAP. I think it illustrates a little bit better how our tools work and the type of data in SAP that you can access. Many of you are probably familiar with SAP and have an SAP account yourself that you use to connect to SAP. In this case, I'm connecting to an SAP ECC system with my username and password. And then from the main menu, I can do all kinds of things. As a financial analyst, I will probably pull up various ABAP reports that I can quickly go to with a T code or a transaction code. In my demo here, I'm going to use KSB1 as a T code. That takes me directly to a cost center line item report. Here I can now fill in different selection parameters, or I can select a variant, which is a predefined set of selections. Once I execute this report, I get a list of cost center line items with their values next to it. So this might be one example where I could really benefit from bringing this information into Alteryx. And our tools allow you to do that in a very seamless and direct way. What you see on my screen now is the Alteryx Designer. Our tool Extract for Alteryx integrates directly into the Alteryx Tools palette. You see it here shown on a separate tab with a number of different components that will give you direct access to your SAP data. What I've shown here a moment ago in SAP was a report, an ABAP report. To access that, I would simply drag and drop the report component into my workflow canvas. And this is actually common between all of our components. Step one is always to connect to SAP. So you see that on the left here in the panel, configuration panel. I can have all kinds of SAP connections to different instances. Maybe you have sandbox instances, quality assurance instances, your productive environment. You can have as many connections here as you would like. And the way you define the connection is very similar to how you connect to SAP GUI. I'm going to bring them up side by side. You saw me earlier double click on this ECC item here in the SAP logon utility. I could also look at the properties. This is how you or your SAP admin has configured the connection. Typically, this involves an SAP application server or what's called a group server or message server. And once I double click on it, I'm prompted to specify my username and password, as well as a logon client. Same idea here in our tool. If you have an SAP account, you will be able to use that and connect to your SAP instance using this connection dialog. So here we would need a single application server or a message server for a load balanced connection. You will specify an SAP client, a logon language, and then your username and password. With that, you can connect and you are able to get access to SAP data. In the second step, once I'm connected to my SAP system with my user credentials, I can select a report. So here I can simply specify the report name or the T code. In my demo earlier, that was KSB1. This is the actual report name from SAP. And I can also select a variant here. So I can utilize my predefined selection criteria. You can further change the selection criteria using the selection screen here. For instance, if I want to override certain values in the variant, in the predefined variant, I could specify here a cost object or a cost center. This also can be parameterized. So these can be dynamic values that you pass in the Alteryx workflow as you run this report. Then we have an automatic column detection built in. This will run the report once in SAP. You can see here now it detected the columns, and I can now look at a preview. So here's my report data. I have all the columns that I'm looking for this cost center report. If I don't want the headers, I can skip some rows from the top. Same from the bottom of the report if there's additional lines that I don't need. And with that, I have a connection to SAP to this report. The report will now execute with my credentials, with my SAP credentials, which also means I am only authorized to see the data that my SAP admin has given me access to. And I can run it, just the component by itself, and inspect the data. Now, with Alteryx, I have the ability to further cleanse this data. I could combine our SAP source component here with all kinds of different tools that you will find in the Alteryx tool. So this is maybe more of a complete workflow that you see here. I'm actually using a dynamic input parameter here, the cost center, that will act as a filter on this report. So I'm only running this report for cost center line items where the cost center is 1000. And then I use the cleansing tool to remove some leading spaces that I sometimes get pulling this data from SAP. And then I can look at the results. So if I run this, the report will execute in SAP, filtered for cost center 1000. This is a more cleansed data set, and I can look at the results now here in this browse tool. Now, another thing I can do is what I have built here in this workflow is I could also take the results of this report, do some data cleansing as before, maybe some sorting. Let me just move this down a little bit more. Okay. And then send the results either to a file, a CSV file, or upload it directly to Alteryx Auto Insights for further analysis of the data set. So this is a workflow that would do that. You see the SAP data extraction here. I'll do some data manipulation and cleansing along the way, and then I upload the data directly to Auto Insights. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Nick, who will show us what we can do with the data in Auto Insights.
Absolutely. Thanks, Christoph. And so while this Alteryx and SAP pairing and the connectivity, right, especially as SAP is historically just a very difficult data set to work with often in more traditional systems, being that closed system, I think we all realize that the data experience, the analytics journey doesn't end, at landing data in a spreadsheet or a data source somewhere else, right? So just to close the loop on this kind of end-to-end analytics automation, let's talk about how we can maybe augment some of our reporting that we might do today with something like Alteryx Auto Insights, right? So once we had that information, and as Christoph was talking about, this cost center type reporting, right? Fantastic that we're able to easily self-serve, retrieve that data from SAP without the IT lag times or the difficulty of just getting that information out. In Alteryx, we were also able to prepare that data, format it correctly, introduce additional data sets to enrich if we might need to, right? And also automate all those kind of data preparation steps through, again, the drag and drop functionality, right? For a very non-technical lift in creating those appropriate data sets. Now, what happens with that last mile, right? And so we want to introduce this idea of Alteryx Auto Insights, which you can think about it as really kind of your BI assistant kind of sitting on your shoulder, right? This is going to be a visualization, right? Kind of a reporting layer here, where instead of the more traditional dashboarding and visualization types, where I might have to, very intentionally set up probably numerous reports, right? Where you have to define your metrics, curate the data in just the right way. And then you've got to really know what are the questions that we actually want to have these visuals answer, right? And there's probably going to be some back and forth. You produce some reports or visuals, those consumers, the audience for that might say, hey, this addresses some of these metrics, but what's the why, the how? What are the key factors that are driving, these metrics that are showing here? And so you kind of have this bouncing back over the fence, right? Okay, I can augment my dashboards to highlight certain things if I build in these components to my reports and my visuals here. So enter Alteryx Auto Insights, right? So kind of showing the last first here, right? Where I can automatically take that data set as Christoph was showing previously, pass this into Auto Insights. All I have to do is define what are those metrics that I might be interested in, right? So in this case, we're looking at values and costs over time, right? How did these different cost centers affect, expenditures? And I can compare this on all kinds of different timelines and timeframes here. But the key component being, I didn't actually have to do any of that dashboard development myself, right? So we're going to have a very kind of companion type, kind of generative AI approach here to assist with a lot of that creation of those insights that you might be looking for. And so this is going to be really quick and easy, especially because we showed there can be direct connectivity from your Alteryx workflows. So in that same automated process, so down to a couple clicks of a button, or better yet, automated on a schedule, I can have this data readily available in Auto Insights, where I can go ahead and create essentially a project name here, upload either a data set that has come out of that workflow. It can be a direct connection, or again, better yet, that direct publish tool coming from that Alteryx workflow itself. And then we can start to have Auto Insights work its magic here in this browser-based environment, right? So just for the sake here, I have this CSV, in this case, of this cost center analysis data set that we had just been working with. And I'm going to tell Alteryx Auto Insights to do some analysis for me. And you'll see that there's very few manual steps that I have to take all the way through this kind of end reporting view here. So this will take just a moment or so. Typically takes, maybe 30 seconds, because there's actually a lot of work going on behind the scenes here. As you can see, kind of the data exploration, it'll start to find correlations. I'm interested in how are these values in my cost centers fluctuating over time. Not only is it going to tell me, hey, it increased by X% year over year or week over week, whatever your timeline you're looking at is, it's also going to give you really kind of the root cause of what and why and how. What are the key drivers that influence those changes here? So this is really the only manual touch point I have. I'm interested in things like my date time scale. I may have these different values that I want to make sure I'm tracking as measures. And I can also just give it some context. When these go up or down, is this really kind of a negative or a positive in these cases? Once I make all those selections, I'm just going to go ahead and have Alteryx then upload and create what we call a mission for me. And so just to save us a couple seconds here, I'll jump back to our kind of main visual, right? So again, very quick, within a matter of a minute or two, without having to do the kind of correlation analysis, the root cause discovery of my own, I can get a dashboard that looks sort of like this. And this is going to be very dynamic, right? So immediately it'll call out things like, looking at that value of these different cost centers. At the moment, I'm just comparing it maybe year over year, but I have all kinds of controls to adjust where I'm looking, what is that timeline. Those are totally customizable, and it will, right away adjust those visuals for you here. But here's the kind of unique part. Not only do I get the metrics that I'm interested in, I also start to get really kind of the important bulletin type story of very natural language insights to complement the reports here. So it's going to quickly discover that, well, 63% of our costs, across our cost centers are coming from just a handful of those different centers. And here they are represented, color coded, so I can discover those very easily. The further I go, it again just kind of curates this story for you, right? So it's really kind of discovering what is important and bringing that to the surface without you having to do the kind of digging, right? When you think about maybe a more traditional dashboard and how would I configure that to show the most important information. And so I can just essentially create a couple different pages for this report, right? Maybe I can have one page of my output look at one metrics of maybe this fixed value. If I'm interested in comparisons, I can add breakdowns, which would divide this up and compare maybe the different cost centers or different regions, against each other. And whatever I set it up as, it's going to, again, kind of recalculate and find the most important drivers for each of those things that I'm looking at. So very quickly, it's not just telling me this fixed value, we had a pretty significant increase in this year over year metric. Here's the main contributors, right? Across all of those things in our data set, we have certain segments that had dramatic increases. We had certain names of business units, maybe different cost types, already really kind of curating where your attention should go for those most important metrics and things that you should be interested in. And so that's the thing here. You can certainly drill down and discover more. If I wanted to know more about maybe those different business segments, right? This quickly takes us into a search page where, again, dynamically it's updating what's most important based on what you just clicked on and where you viewed this. So that's kind of the goal here with Auto Insights. Extremely fast to get to that important information, float the significant factors up to the surface. And this is using, again, really kind of machine learning and these algorithms behind the scenes to alleviate you having to do that yourself here. And the last thing I'll kind of touch on here is it's great, right, that we've produced some report here. This, of course, can be automated as well, so that once I've configured this once, if I update new data next week, right through those Alteryx workflows, this is all going to adapt. So if there's new things in that data next time, if there's new drivers, even unexpected, those are going to be displayed here, right? This will refresh with new insights every time you give it new data to explore. And you can do a number of things from here. I could even break this down by region. You can apply filters and things so that, maybe I have my America's cost center management receive a very tailored report to them, and it receives maybe a Monday morning, email automatically. Here's the most important things that you should pay attention to that happened last week, last month, so on. And if I want to take this one step further, being the buzz and the convenience that things like generative AI are these days, we do also what we call magic documents in Auto Insights. So if I'd like to take this and make it maybe a little bit more of a short form, consumable, automatically delivered message or presentation, I can jump over into magic documents and say, what kind of content would I like to summarize this into, right? This could be something like an email. It can actually generate a PowerPoint presentation for you. And this is all going to be based on this mission that we just created, right? It'll contextualize and summarize this into whatever form you'd like this output to be in. So for the sake of maybe a quick response here, I might be interested in sending a message to maybe a controller, right? And I can go ahead and generate an email. And I have some levers I can pull to adjust how lengthy is this email? What is the tone of this content? What is the objective, right? But this is going to really quickly at least give you a template that you can share this information, again, automatically with kind of as little touch points from yourself as you might need. So as with many, if you're familiar with using the chat GPTs of the world and such, really kind of bringing that type of functionality to your actually analytics sharing and your reporting here as well. And so as this takes just a moment, I do have this example here that we can take a look at as well, giving you kind of, again, that messaging lever to share these results out. So you have kind of optionality, right? These emails.
I'll just add, I think one of the things that a lot of people spend a lot of time on is taking all of these financial results like that you have and then plugging those into a deck or a presentation or something that an executive needs to use for their team members or even for investors or whoever they're going to use it for, like to provide that type of analysis, to be able to get something, whether it be a PowerPoint presentation that's pretty much 80% there in terms of all of the data that you need, and then just for you to tweak it with look and feel, that's a big time save. So that's kind of supercharging that end-to-end visualization of what's happening in the business and speeding up the process. And that's part of what this is all about. You go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jonathan. And so this completed here, right? So just with the mission that I provided it, so that kind of series of visuals in our previous page, and some direction about who the audience for this message is, now we've got something that I can use or edit as kind of a baseline for sharing that information out to others and the relevant audience there. So again, I can kind of give it some suggestions on how to craft this. You can see it pointed out those key findings that were displayed in that last page of report that we looked at. And you can also have it make some suggestions, right? Hey, there's some of those cost centers that were suspiciously high compared to many others, right? Here's some that you can review. What are some best next steps to focus your energy and attention on? And again, if I wanted to change this just a little bit, I can change that audience. Instead of improve results, maybe it's reduce costs. It'll change the context and tone of this messaging. And also just some levers about how would you like to present this to your end audience there. So to just kind of quickly summarize here, right? We can start to combine and include, right, where Christoph has shown an Alteryx workflow that takes data all the way from SAP direct connectivity that a business user can access easily through that self-service methodology, prepare data, integrate enrichment data sets, perform calculations, and publish all the way through, an endpoint reporting tool where, again, you don't have to do any of the configuring here. It's going to be intelligent enough to surface what's important and share that out for you. So you take all of that and run it, take that whole process down to a couple of clicks. Maybe you automate it so these things are hands off daily, weekly, monthly. That's where you really start to see those big lifts and dramatic transformations in your analytics here. So hopefully this was helpful. It gives you a taste of what's possible here through that whole end-to-end integration. And I'll turn it back to you, Jonathan, and we might have a question or two if that hasn't been answered in the chat already that we might be able to address.
Yeah, and I think that the key takeaway here is that when you connect the SAP data all the way through using Alteryx all the way to that visualization layer at the end, and so you take that kind of real-time SAP type data, funnel it in through your Alteryx analytics solution, augment it with whatever other type of data that you're using, whether it's from from Workday or from your Salesforce or whatever other financially impacting tools that have financial data that you need. Combining all of that data together and then being able to visualize it, whether it's for sales operations or for your executive leadership, all of that's possible end to end using Alteryx and the Theobald software connectors. So with that said, I did think it might be valuable for me to quickly share a quick slide. Let me just see if I can get my thing back. So I'm going to just play from this slide. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
I thought it might be helpful for me to quickly share with you what we call blueprints. So with Alteryx and with the Theobald software connectors, there are lots of different use cases across the finance spectrum that where Alteryx plays, and it has the ability to really make huge transformational change and save tremendous amounts of time for the people who are typically working in spreadsheets or and not being able to do things as quickly as they need to. And where today speed is everything and doing more with less is so important, finding some of these use cases and freeing up your data workers in finance to be able to do more with less and do more high value work. Here are some of the places you can go, whether it be in tax, for tax and regulatory compliance, trying to get all of your tax documentation. We do that very often. We're very commonly in the tax department and in the FP&A and audit departments across the org. But there are multiple different areas across the office of the CFO where Alteryx has the ability to make significant impacts. And what we ask today for you is feel free to jump in the chat, ask questions now. But I did want to say that if any of this sounds interesting to you, especially the Theobald software, I don't know your ecosystem and how how everything fits in for you, but working with your sales rep from Alteryx, they'll be able to really do a deeper dive discovery with you, and that's what we would encourage you to do, is to reach out to the sales rep that you work with, ask them to do a discovery session with Theobald software and potentially with your solutions engineer, and uncover some use cases where you might be able to prove things out to drive value and build the business case for really speeding up some of these processes end to end.